GoForThe2.com. We're into my week 3 predictions for the college football season. What can you say about week number 2? But some marquee games, unbelievable outcomes, upsets, and week number 3 is shaping up to be an unbelievable week as well. Let's get right into it. I have 4 predictions for the college football season. Week number 3, Georgia, South Carolina. Bulldogs have dropped 2 straight in Williams-Brice Stadium and dropped 3 of the last 4 against South Carolina. So the numbers really favor the Gamecocks in this matchup. But to me, I think this game is all Georgia. I think Georgia dominates for a couple of different reasons. They're coming off a bye week, which I really think will benefit offensive coordinator Mike Bobo to really allow him to utilize his offensive weapons. When you look at the running backs and wide receivers of Georgia, they are loaded. And I really think that that'll benefit quarterback Hudson Mason. When you look at the defensive side of the ball, you're giving Jeremy Pruitt an extra added week to attack that South Carolina offense. I think that's a big benefit for the Bulldogs heading into this matchup. When you look at South Carolina secondary, still giving up a lot of yards. Last week at home to Shane Carden and the East Carolina Pirates, they surrendered 300 yards passing and over 400 for the game. They 453. They won that ball game 33-23, but they've been tested now in back-to-back games by Texas A&M and East Carolina vertically. Very young secondary that's really not getting better. They're really being exploited in my eyes, and I like that matchup. Georgia's wide receivers and Georgia's offensive coordinator Mike Bobo going up against defensive coordinator Lorenzo Ward. I think Bobo has the advantage due to the offensive weapons. I think this game is close early, but in the end, Todd Gurley, those staple of backs, really come through, and Hudson Mason has a dominating performance, and the Dogs run away with it for a dominating victory in Columbia as they move to 2-0 on the year. Let's talk about another game, Iowa State. This game, the last 3 years, has been decided by 6 points. Iowa State has not played well to start the year. They opened up 2 home games. They started against North Dakota State, up in that ball game 14-0. They wound up losing that game 31-14. I know North Dakota State's a very solid team. They knocked off Kansas State last year on the road. They come back, they knock off another Big 12 opponent in Iowa State. But in the end, they got worn down by a dominant North Dakota State team. Week number 2, they're playing Jake Waters in Kansas State. They jump out to a big halftime lead, cannot hold that lead in the second half, and they lose 32-28. They now have to get up for a rivalry game and travel on the road to Iowa. Iowa has not looked good this year. Very lethargic, 17-13 win over Ball State. But I like what they have on the offensive side of the ball with quarterback Jake Rudock, and I like Kirk Ferentz as a coach and a game planner. And I think from a psychological perspective, even though it's a rivalry game, I think Iowa has better weapons offensively and defensively, and they dominate in this matchup and pick a dominating home victory over Iowa State in this game. I don't even think it's close. I think Iowa dominates from start to finish. Couple of underdogs that I like in this weekend. You're talking about Louisville going to Charlottesville to take on Mike London and the Cavs. Cavs really impressed me defensively week 1 against UCLA and Brett Hundley. What that defensive front was able to do, very underrated. I knew they had a solid secondary, but it was the Cavs defensive front 4 that really put a lot of pressure on UCLA's O-line and quarterback Brett Hundley to force him into making mistakes. And I think that this could be a possible underrated defense in the ACC. When you look at Louisville, first road game of the year, and they still don't have their big play wide receiver Devontae Parker. I know they've been putting up numbers, and Will Gardner's playing very well within the system, but I think this is a tough spot for Louisville going to Charlottesville. I like Kevin Parks at the running back position, and Johns, the quarterback, really came on and impressed me against a solid UCLA defense week number 1. So I think this is a tough spot. I think this game is close from start to finish, and I really think that Virginia picks up the home victory. Mike London's on the hot seat, and I think that they stun Louisville in this matchup. Probably about a 24-20 victory for Virginia in this game. Another underdog that I really think is going to come to play is the Fresno State Bulldogs as they face the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Nebraska and Bo Pelini almost getting knocked off at home against McNeese State if it wasn't for Amir Abdullah's unbelievable run in the fourth quarter, Nebraska might have been on the ropes. But when you watch this ball game, as Nebraska takes to the road, going to the West Coast is a very tough environment for the Cornhuskers. It's a very tough stadium to play in Fresno State, and I think Fresno State playing a little under where they really are as a team. I think they're a solid team. I know they got blown out by USC week 1, but I think they're better than their week 1 performance, and I think Nebraska is really in a battle from start to finish. Fresno State challenges them vertically and challenges them in terms of challenging their secondary, and I really think that Nebraska ekes out a 3-point victory. I think it's a 23-20 Cornhusker win on the road. It's going to be an unbelievable week of college football. Stay with me at goforthechew.com. I love talking about college football 24/7. See you next week.